I guess like what I've kind of like thought about with my thesis more and more is about like the significance of the impact that technology has on like society and culture and people's behavior, and like because of that is why I kind of want to challenge people's expectations with like how technology would say like react to their participation. So that's kind of how everything turns around, and I was kind of able to like better vocalize or figure out like why I was interested in like wanting to kind of like offer like interesting or unusual situations back to the user. And I think it's because it's like almost this like tongue-in-cheek way of kind of pushing them out of their boundaries of how they think the world should behave with all this connectiveness. The hope of my project is to be able to challenge people's perspectives and their perceptions and expectations of how technology interacts or responds to their interactions with it. By doing so, I hope that having been thrown into a scenario that they weren't expecting or they weren't anticipating with a specific style of interaction could help them kind of think and reflect on how they participate and interact with new technologies and existing technologies, and be able to be more self-aware and understand how their decisions kind of impact them, how their decisions and the information that they share helps keep these companies running, but it is all that giving up all that information needed. So it's really to kind of allow them or allow the users of my project and to look at my research as a whole as a creative practice to be able to help people understand the current ecosystem of technology, society, and how the two kind of overlap and are now intertwined, and be able to make educated decisions about how that person as an individual wants to interact with this extremely complex social and technological environment.
That level of trust has to go to the software vendor, and that you need to be able to kind of, I don't know, evaluate the vendor and the platform that you're using. Sometimes there's, I mean, I actually think when I boot up Pokemon Go, I am kind of like, who built this thing? It's very slow. Like there's this loading page that takes like a long time, and then like some of the graphics don't, and so I don't know if it's just mental stuff, but it doesn't look super polished. And so sometimes I go like, what are they doing underneath the surface here? And I think like optically, when it is a good brand, it's a polished application, everything looks good. Like it's almost like you walk into a business that is a sketchy, pawn shop, and the guy's asking you to give him cash, versus you walk into a Trader Joe's and they have everything in line and it's a very proper place. So I think like the digital world, you kind of learn to look for kind of things that might be a little bit off compared to things that you're used to seeing and might trust.
Yeah, I think what you just said right now is really important. I think that actually kind of that like words it in a very good way with what you're just saying, is that like it, rather than like should you be aware of where your information is going, potentially like shifting it to be like, should people be not suspicious but more aware of like the apps or the developers or the organizations that they're participating with, and like be able to make like the proper like kind of like gut feeling call of like sketchy or not, because
Continuing from here, after the CFC prototyping course, I will continue to be using GitHub as for project planning, using their issues, which have really good functionalities for integrating with the code that will go along with my thesis, as well as creating milestones, which I'll treat as sprints for every 2 weeks, and creating detailed issues and tasks that need to be completed throughout the duration of my project. I'm just working through a few final quirks in my current prototype before I continue with my user tests. I'll be using the information from the user tests to help with iterative prototyping. By iterative prototyping, I will be continuously expanding, growing, and evolving my current prototype into what will eventually be used as my final thesis project.